All right. Well, technical difficulties. That's crazy. All right. Hello, and welcome back to Reese's Side Quest. Today is an unusual video. Perhaps I think this is the first time that I've ever done a Q&A or an, I guess, AMA as well live stream. So on here, I'm going to be running through a handful of questions that I've received on a short that I posted asking for questions on here, on my TikTok, and on my Instagram meme account as well. If you don't follow those, the Instagram account is at Cheeseburger Cats, where I mainly post memes. That's pretty much my largest social media outlet generally. And then the TikTok, I post everything that's on here in shorts, as well as some previews of videos and as well just some bonus content and behind the scenes that don't make it onto this channel as well. So without that much further ado, this live stream is also being done on the special occasion of 10,000 subscribers for the channel. So I would like to thank everyone for that milestone. However, the situation with that is that basically, you know, a lot of my newer subscribers here, the most recent like 8,000 or so, have come from my shorts content, which is mainly focused on like explaining the specific cat subreddits and other meme content online. So I'm pretty well informed on that from running a meme account for 10 years. So I should have known earlier on in the process of this account that that's what would have been successful. But in this live stream, I just wanted to chat with some of my new subscribers and talk about some of my other content that I have on here in terms of the side quests of it all and the wide variety of long form content that I have on here. I think if you'd seen the thumbnail, it was just the joke that I had basically received, you know, millions of views on my cat Reddit shorts, but only a handful of views on my long form travel content that I put quite a bit of effort into. So that's just kind of how it goes with YouTube. So I'm just here, I'm just having a good time, and I wanted to do this live stream to just document this milestone in the channel and to just run through some of the baseline get to know you things that some people might want to be cued into. So without further ado, let's get into the questions that I've been submitted so far. I have a good handful, but if I receive more in the chat and I have time, I will certainly run through those as well. So the first question, I've only taken like minor notes on these. Largely the responses that I'm going to be giving here are just off the top of my head. So just keep that in mind when I'm sort of going through these questions that I've been asked. So the very first one, and I'm just doing these more so in the order of that they make sense. So the first one is I believe from somebody who already commented here. I'm going to just simplify the questions a little bit. Some of them were kind of long. I'm just going to kind of simplify them. So the first question was just asking, what is your background and why do you run this channel? So my background is largely in biology. I have a degree, a bachelor's degree in biology with where I also studied business administration and chemistry as well. So that's my educational background. And then since I graduated, I've been running my own company in essentially like asset trading, asset management. So I've been able to get some free time on the side to start this channel and try to go pro on YouTube essentially. So that's kind of what I've been doing currently, and I just have a lifelong experience of travel that I wanted to be able to share on this channel as well, in both my prior experiences in doing kind of travel reviews, like I've done one on traveling to Nepal. I've done a live stream before on all of the different UNESCO World Heritage sites that I've visited. And then additionally, I have also done more kind of up-to-date recent like travel vlogs where I travel to a place, do filming intentionally for a video, and then will report back with what I experience on the trip as well, which I did one for Las Vegas. I did one for the Grand Canyon, and then I also have an upcoming video on Mystic, Connecticut, which I visited recently. So that will be coming out pretty soon. So that's kind of my background and reason for the channel. It's all in the spirit of just wanting to do more interesting things in my daily life, getting the excuse to go out and do something interesting and say, you know, oh, this is for work, this is for the channel. But I just have the excuse to be able to go and do like super interesting stuff. I'm based in New York City, so obviously there is a lot of interesting stuff that I can go and do on the daily basis in terms of things that I think would classify as side quests per se for the name of the channel. And that does kind of bring me into the second question here, which asks me, what is a side quest? And this was kind of the second part of the first question that was asked here. So, and to me, a side quest is whatever I make of it, frankly. So it's going to be both side quests physically in going and traveling to different places, as well as visiting different locations in New York City and wherever I may be living at the time. So, you know, just visiting various very interesting, unique locations, reporting back about them on the channel, as well as just kind of intellectual side quests in the terms of looking into things that I tend to be interested in, like my birding, where I keep a list of the birds that I see, as well as my hobby in coin collecting, and where I do, as you may have seen, share quite a bit of footage and content from coin collecting and recent acquisitions in that process. So a side quest is both physical and intellectual. I also will do media and book reviews. I've done a handful of those as well. I did recently a review of the Backrooms movie, which I did quite enjoy. And I think one of the very first videos, the very first long form videos that I did on the channel, was a review of the Andor TV series, where I did really enjoy that series. I've only watched the first season so far, and I did the review with my girlfriend, who is a huge like Star Wars enthusiast and knows a lot more about kind of the lore and the backstory of it than I do. And so I did the video with her and talking about the show in the context of the broader Star Wars world building and the broader Star Wars kind of political commentary. So I think that like the intellectual side quests per se, where I'm doing media reviews and kind of putting media into context of the current, you know, world situation, current political situation, is just as relevant to what I'm doing on this channel as well. So, I mean, in addition to that, like when it comes to like the first question with my background, with my study in biology, I mainly focused on environmental science in my studies, in terms of, you know, coursework, but also like my thesis in undergraduate. I did a thesis on this thing that's called bioremediation, where you basically take like in general, you're taking plants and using like the features of plants where they can absorb certain chemicals, they can process certain chemicals, they can release certain chemicals. And you're using those processes that, you know, certain plants might exhibit more than others to clean up pollutants. And so I was like doing kind of background research on that, figuring out where the current research was on it. And I found that there was it's kind of in the mix where people know that this is a thing, like the bioremediation. They know that it works to some extent, but it hasn't really been applied at a large scale, and it hasn't really been applied to where it's doing anything. So I think that there needs to be more research, or what I was finding was that there needs to be more research done to kind of enhance this process and make it so that it is more like widely applicable, more like industrially applicable. So what I ended up doing was taking the bioremediation from the plants and then also adding in the element of fungus and bacteria of the soil. Like this, I was adding in this like stinky liquid mixture to this custom hydroponic system that I built for small like leafy greens, some collard greens, and mustard greens as well. And it was actually pretty interesting that the plants in combination with the microbes were actually fairly successful in cleaning up. I was testing it particularly on lead. We're pretty successful in cleaning up the lead. And I was like, this is real. It's not just like, oh, this is real science, but also that, there's gaps in our science that we really would think is like something that people would have figured out. But there's just so much going on that like there's more gaps than you would think in science. And so that's kind of where a lot of my passion for the channel comes from, is in terms of science and historical and kind of world history based education. So I think that brings me pretty much to the third question. Which is, what are your upcoming videos? Or what are your plans for the channel? I think was the question, what are your plans for the channel? But I'm just going to go through my upcoming videos, because like plans for the channel, it's pretty much what I'm already doing. I'm going to be more so releasing videos on a weekly basis. And then also doing live streams on essentially like a monthly basis. So that's the release schedule that will be upcoming. But in terms of upcoming videos, like I said before, I'm going to have a travel review for visiting the Mystic, Connecticut area, which I was able to go to this past weekend. I was visiting one of my good friends, and then also, checking out the area in terms of places to possibly move to in the future. It just seems like a pretty nice area, and it was very nice. I liked it a lot, and there's some very interesting like historical preservation and good architecture and things like that. So so the Mystic, Connecticut review is going to be upcoming. That's going to be the next one that comes out. That's going to come out in the next couple of days. After that, I'm going to do a review on The Amazing Digital Circus, which is a show that has been released on YouTube that has garnered a little bit of like, I guess, controversy because of the creator and the creator's prior like statements, I suppose, which I'm not going to particularly get into extensively in this upcoming video. I'm going to be reviewing specifically the content and the show. But I'll talk about that a little bit. But The Amazing Digital Circus, I really liked the show, and I feel like and then I went to see the finale in theaters because it was able to have a theatrical release for a YouTube show, and it was a huge deal. This kind of idea of an indie creator releasing a YouTube series that, it's animated, and they animate it with a small team, and it's like, okay, this is very interesting, very inspiring to see like this kind of thing be able to make it into theaters. But I really feel like the finale dropped the ball on the, not just the animation, but mainly the plot and the conclusion of the the resolutions that were set up in the plot. I was a huge fan of the show, from episodes 1 through, I believe, 8, and then episode 9 was the one that premiered just in theaters. And I was like, this is like the worst way to wrap up some of these plot lines. Like, I really did think that there was ways that you could have made certain characters like Jax or other characters who people maybe disliked for whatever reasons. Like, you could have really wrapped their plot lines up in ways that made sense and made them have like plot conclusions that actually proved a point or taught a lesson to the audience. But I feel like a lot of the resolutions that were brought forth in the conclusion were just kind of cyclical logic and nonsense that just wrapped up a series that had really good philosophical ideas and really cool like existential commentary in just a cruddy way, like where you're like, this is just a very weak ending in my opinion. But I'll get into that in the review. I'm just kind of doing a very brief overview. So the next one that I'm going to do is possibly doing it by myself, possibly with my girlfriend, doing like a discussion back and forth, kind of reading headlines and doing analysis of the current political situation, talking about just in general the current current events in the world, doing like a wrap up of the week's headlines, where I will read off the headlines and talk about a little bit, and she will be able to react, and then we'll have a discussion. So, both of us are relatively like left-leaning progressive people. So, the commentary will largely be framed in that way. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, make sure to stay tuned and check that out. One that I've been working on writing the script for lately is one for the invasive bird species of New York City, which is a really like weird topic that I find particularly interesting, just having lived here and seen pretty much all of these species except for a couple, where New York City tends to have both we have both certain resident populations of invasive species of birds, as most of the US does, like with house sparrows, house finches, things like that, where mourning doves, or not mourning doves, sorry, rock doves, rock pigeons, where they're a very widespread invasive population that's come over hundreds of years ago and has spread into very large, multi-hundred million individual populations. But in addition to those, which do, frankly, in addition to the Eurasian starling as well, like those four kind of form like this urban bird fabric of New York and a lot of other United States cities, when in reality, none of those birds are native. Like, all four of them, the starling, the house sparrow, house finch, and the rock pigeon, are all invasive, completely introduced artificially. And so you really go from having that like baseline fabric, where it's very interesting of, okay, our baseline understanding of the natural bird ecosystem is kind of skewed by complete takeover of invasive species. But then additionally, in New York City, you have a handful of these like weird populations of non-native birds, where it's not really a widespread invasive species like some of these others are, where you have things like the monk parakeet, for example, where they just have these kind of small isolated colony populations, and they serve certain purposes in the city, such as like kind of warding off pigeons from certain areas, like the cemeteries, where the pigeon excrement will like damage the stone, and the parakeets will not necessarily, so they're kind of allowed to exist there. There's a couple other places as well, like where they're kind of allowed to exist in certain areas, so they don't build their humongous nests in other areas where it would be more harmful. So you have things like that, and then the third tier, where you have like truly escaped things from the zoo, released pets, weird stuff that just kind of appears. We've had mandarin ducks coming out of nowhere, where sometimes they're truly just vagrants coming over the Atlantic, somehow, and then sometimes they're released pets or game birds, essentially, that just get out into New York City um, by that way, and they're able to just kind of exist in like the New York City parks, like a mandarin duck. I don't know if you've ever seen these things, but they're like insanely colorful looking. I think they're native to China, I believe, and some other countries in Eastern Asia as well. But like, I just really want to see one of these in the parks. I really thought that I saw one time. It might have been a wood duck. I didn't have my camera, and it was really far away. But you have species like that where they'll just pop up, a couple times a year. We had one where there was a Eurasian eagle owl that escaped the Central Park Zoo, and they just let it live in Central Park for like 4 years or something until it just naturally passed away. And like, people would see this owl, this, a very large owl, the Eurasian eagle owl. I think it's smaller than the great horned owl, but it's like comparable. Like, it's big. So people would see this huge thing just flying around, and they're like, "What is that?" Not that's not normal to see in New York City, I don't think. And it wasn't. And it was invasive species, technically, but it wasn't going to reproduce. So they didn't see it as a problem. They just kind of let it be. And it seemed to kind of just live a normal, happy life, just hunting the birds of prey do really well in New York City because of the rats, the pigeons, the amount of other kind of small animals that exist in the city that like feed them. So you'll have something like that where it's technically an invasive species, but like, it doesn't really care. It has a completely great time hunting the rats and pigeons. I think another example of that, there's also peacocks that will escape, just the Indian peafowl that will escape from the Prospect Park Zoo, the Bronx Zoo, and the Central Park Zoo, and you'll sometimes just see an escaped one wandering around one of the parks, and you're like, I think people do report them, and maybe the zoo workers will come and get them, but I really don't know. I really don't know how, or maybe they just go back. I think they can kind of fly a little bit, and they just kind of go back. I think that so that's that upcoming video. New York City invasive bird species. I think it'll be a really fun video. I'm partially done writing the script, but like I said, it's kind of a little ways down the docket. Further than that, going onward, I've got the Weeksville Museum. I'm going to be visiting this museum in Brooklyn, New York, where it's a historical, architectural, and cultural site that was basically founded by Black people in the 1800s, where they were able to construct a neighborhood in a very distinctive architectural style that was able to be preserved ongoingly. And the museum talks about both the cultural heritage of the area, and like the Black culture from the 1800s in Brooklyn and New York City, as well as the architecture of those houses that were preserved there. So I do want to go and possibly chat with them, get a guided tour, and do some good filming for the channel. So that's the Weeksville Museum in Brooklyn. I'll be heading out there in a few weeks to do an upcoming video. So that's another one. I've got a few others on the docket. Believe it or not, I'm working on like 6 things at once, but that's just kind of how my mind works. I have my next birding video, and I know it's been like a little while since I've done a birding video. I did get some good photography when I was in Connecticut of birds. I got an osprey. I got a year lister great egret. I also photographed some really funny photos of some crows in the rain. So, but I haven't put out a video for birding in a couple months. So my upcoming one, I'm going to go down to Brooklyn Bridge Park and do some bird photography around there, get some of the waterfowl, see what kind of ducks and water birds that I can see down there. Should be pretty fun. I should be doing that in the next couple weeks, just when I have a spare day to go and do that on a good weather day. The next like informational bird video, if you saw my American woodcock in-depth kind of video, I really had a lot of fun making that, and it was also really well received. So I do want to do another video in that style. and my candidate for it is going to be the black-crowned night heron, which is a pretty popular bird on the internet. I guess I could say it's certainly a popular meme, at least both here and in China, as I covered, the bird memes of China short series. If you saw that, the black-crowned night heron is extremely popular for its like hilarious kind of weird body positions and poses and weird behaviors that it does. So I'm going to be doing a video on that and also talking about the conservation efforts for it, because it is approaching a threatened status here in New York City, in New York Harbor. Their populations and their habitats are in fact declining. So I do want to do a video on them to talk about that, raise a little bit of awareness, and share some resources for people who want to support the cause of the black-crowned night heron. So that's going to be upcoming in probably 3 weeks. After that, I have a couple of media reviews as well to come out. I watched the Star Wars TV series Maul, which I'm also going to do with my girlfriend, of course, with the Star Wars reviewing. It was good. I liked it. I think it was really interesting. And look, I didn't even know this, but like she was telling me that Maul, or Darth Maul, for those of you who aren't on a first name basis with him, I guess, he's like based on Sisyphus. So his whole thing is that he like tries and tries, and then he just gets screwed up right at the last second. Like he's really getting close to being kind of a real Sith Lord, and then he gets cut in half by Obi-Wan, and then he does certain things in the Clone Wars, and then he gets knocked down again, and then he does certain things in the show, and you'll see how it ends. Well, actually, it's kind of a cliffhanger a little bit, so there's going to be a season 2, and I'm going to do a review on that, I guess, too. But like, but yeah, just overall, the Maul review is going to be upcoming, like TBD, as well as another one that's going to be like an interview for my girlfriend is a interview for a Taylor Swift fan. So like a full kind of deep dive on Taylor Swift bio, the discography, and just like addressing certain controversies, addressing kind of cultural themes and so on around Taylor Swift and her art and career. So that'll be upcoming in about a month. My next travel review, that's going to be on like, something that I traveled, somewhere that I traveled in the past, but I'm doing kind of a review looking back at it, what the trip was like, lessons that I learned to share with you for if you want to travel there. And the next upcoming one I'm going to do is on traveling to China. So I was able to travel to China, I guess it was about 7 years ago. Oh my gosh. So I was able to travel to China about 7 years ago when I was in high school. So I want to do a full review of that trip, my experience, kind of what to know, what to do, what not to do. And that's going to be my next travel review. So be on the lookout for that. That's kind of TBD as well. The other upcoming travel review is going to be on my trip to Italy, where I did a trip from Rome, kind of traveling by train southward to the tip of Sicily in Palermo and then back. And so I'm going to do kind of a review of what that trip was like as well, talking about the transit, my lodging, food experiences, share my photos and so on. But, again, it was a few years ago, so it's kind of in that category of like travel reviews rather than travel vlogs per se. So that's just kind of TBD as well. The another museum in New York City that I want to visit for an upcoming video, but I was a little bit unclear as to whether they actually allow filming. Like their website says that like you can film for personal reasons, but you can't film for like commercial reasons. And I'm like, YouTube kind of walks that line where you're like, I'm not filming for a TV show. I'm not coming in there with a film crew and filming for a TV show. Like I'm going to be just silently chill, doing my thing, filming. But that's the New York Transit Museum. Did I even say that? The New York City Transit Museum, where they talk about all the historical trains. They have examples of historic train cars. Like, I'm not a huge nerd about the train car system and the subway system like some people are, but I still find it super interesting, and I find the existence of that museum interesting. It's been on my bucket list for a while now, so I wanted to do a review, and do like a travel like side quest vlog going there, but their website's kind of ambiguous on the filming thing. So I guess I'm that's why that one's kind of at the bottom of the list. Like, I'm gonna have to call them maybe and ask. Um, you know, maybe they just want all the YouTube clout for themselves. I'm not really sure what the deal is there, or if they just don't want you disturbing the other people that are there trying to enjoy the museum. I don't want to be in there like, "What's up, guys? I'm at the train museum." It's I'm gonna be very chill and quiet. Like, I think if I tell them that, maybe they'll be like, more chill with letting me film. The last one on my list that I have, which I haven't really started working on at all, but is just doing a tour of the American Museum of Natural History in New York City, on the Upper West Side, the Night at the Museum place. I have a friend from high school that actually got a job working there, and he offered to give me some behind the scenes looks at the collections and to give me some kind of cool info on what it's like to work there. So that's in the works for long term planning as well. And additionally, I also have in the works an interview of one of my friends from Nepal, who's an attorney and a human rights activist over there. And I do want to talk to him about the changes that Nepal has seen. Like, I haven't seen anything in the like Western news cycle about Nepal in the past 6 months or so. So, and they had basically a complete major uprising, a major like people's uprising, um, throughout not only the capital but the entire country, that basically forced a reorganization of their government. And it was a mass mobilization largely against corruption in the country, which I find very interesting. And I think like he will be able to offer some good insights into, the realities, the scary realities of what that was like, but also some insights into, what we can learn from movements like that really commit, frankly, to seeking liberation for people and for seeking justice for, people who had been kind of subject to violence of their government. So so that pretty much is my entire slate of upcoming videos for the next few months. And that pretty much encapsulates that and kind of gives you the idea of where the channel is going to be heading. Those videos, like I said, I said a weekly, but like honestly, to come out with all those, I'm gonna have to come out with about 2 a week, which I think I can do. Somebody asked me in the chat here, so I'll just go ahead and answer because I think that's pretty quick. But I also don't have a good answer. So they asked, what is your favorite state? And I have traveled to quite a lot of the US states. So I don't really like, I grew up in Kentucky, and that's frankly not one of my favorite states. Like, I respect certain charms that it has. Like, I do enjoy some of the horse racing stuff. I enjoy the culture around the bourbon industry. Like, I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. It's just not a place that I wanted to live. That's why I moved to New York City like 7 years ago. And so New York is up there. I would say top few. I like it a lot. I also really like the state of Oregon. I've traveled out there a couple times with my family when I was a little bit younger, and I just really like the nature there. The nature there is unreal, and I think that it's super underrated. Maybe it's not underrated. I guess houses and stuff there are kind of expensive, but it's incredible. I think Oregon, and then if to get that kind of vibe, but on the East Coast where you have the dramatic elevation changes, mountains, cliffs right next to the coastline. You have forested coastlines as well. You also have Maine, which is another one of my favorite states. So I say that pretty much is like my top 3, like Oregon, Maine, New York. And then, I do like Connecticut. I just traveled there this weekend. As I said, I'm going to be doing the video on Mystic upcoming, so maybe that will get added to the list. Maybe that will get added to the top 4. We'll see. We'll see. I really did like traveling to Arizona to go to the Grand Canyon. It was really beautiful. I mean, I only saw the Grand Canyon area specifically, not really any more of Arizona. Well, I mean, I guess I drove across a good portion of the state. We did the historic Route 66 drive, like on the way out to the Grand Canyon. And so I liked Arizona a lot in terms of just the things to see there, the birding, the nature. The Grand Canyon obviously was great. The hiking there was great. The food around there, but it's a national park town. Like, that's just kind of how it is. So, favorite states, kind of a coin toss. I have a lot of states that I like. Get some tea here. All right, next question. So the next person asked me, what is your favorite coin? Because I do a lot of coin collecting content on here, as you may know. And I think I actually left. Do I have it in here? I don't know. I have a couple of slabs in here. Let me see if I have something good. Oh, this is good. This is good. Okay. So this is so one thing that I really find interesting with coin collecting is finding things that are really like truly one of a kind, and certified to be so. And so this one is a good example of that, where it's a coin from 1820 from Peru, minted in Lima, Peru, by the colonial Spanish government. You can see on the reverse of it here the Spanish coat of arms. And this coin essentially has on the front of it here a stamp that you can see that was made by a jeweler in Connecticut in 1858, about 38 years after the coin was minted. And so now that it's been encapsulated in here, it's kind of certified, original kind of add-on history per se to the coin, where you could say, I mean, some people love straight graded coins, as you could say, where there's no damage, no nothing to it, and it gets a good, neat score out of 70. That's fine, but I think when you're having coins like this, where, if you wanted a perfect 70, it's going to cost you like $1 million or something. Seeking originality in other ways is a really good kind of creative step for collectors to take, to kind of get those original pieces and have those things in their collection that are truly unique and stand apart from anyone else's collection. Oh my goodness. Yeah, the next person asked me, are you monetized on YouTube, and what was that process like? No, I'm actually not monetized on YouTube. Despite having 10,000 subs, I'm not monetized on YouTube, but I did actually think it was an interesting opportunity to talk about, like, behind the scenes a little bit, what the qualifications for that are, and what that process kind of looks like when you're leading up to that. So the main things about monetization is around the hours of watch time that you have on your videos. So despite the fact that I have 10,000 subs and I have like a couple million views on my shorts mainly, that does not qualify me for monetization, because they require a certain amount of time. I believe it's 4,000 hours of watch time on your long form videos only. That doesn't count the shorts. So I have like well over that, like multiples of that watch time on the shorts from my cat subreddits explained videos. So however, to be monetized for shorts alone, you have to receive 10 million shorts views every 3 months, which I'm also not quite at either. So coming up just a little bit short, but I'm really a lot further along than I was obviously when I first started the channel. So I'm not discouraged at this point from that process, because I think it would be cool to get the normal like channel monetization. I mean, I know you guys probably have to watch ads on the video anyway, so I might as well get something for it. Like, come on now. Um, so no, I'm not monetized, but that process is kind of a long one and a drawn out one on YouTube's behalf, because they do want to validate. Like, from what I've heard, the biggest cost for YouTube is actually just storing all of the video files that people upload here. Like, their biggest overhead cost, I think it's even a bigger cost than like literally all of their employees, is just storing all of the data, like storing all of the videos, just having all of that stuff. And I guess maybe now with like data centers and stuff like that, like AI data centers, maybe it's easier for them to store more stuff cheaper. But I don't know. Like, I feel like it still has to be, because I mean, you have just every year, every day, there's more and more people producing content. Um, and I think that like they because of that, the point that I was getting to, because of that fact that every hour that is uploaded to their stream costs them, they want to make sure that they're getting their money's worth of people watching the hours, the time of those streams. They don't really care about the number of clicks or even the number of likes on stuff, really. Likes isn't even factored in. That's not even counted for a thing in terms of monetization, which I found interesting as well. Like, it's not even a factor. So that's pretty interesting. I don't know if live stream hours are counted. I think that they are, though. I think that they are. So yeah, no monetization, but I'm kind of on track to be there by like a few months from now, essentially. So that's kind of exciting. It's definitely exciting to kind of see those, like, they have on the YouTube Studio app, there's like these bars of like, you are here, and you're filling it up to reach the 10 million or the 4,000 hours or whatever you need to reach to get that monetization. And it's like, it's very satisfying to see the bar get bigger. So it's a fun quest, and it's a fun like journey to kind of get to that point. But no, yeah. So I'm not quite there. So we have then, I think that basically moves me into the next question, which, thank you for whoever is liking the video. Oh yeah, my favorite other YouTubers. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so what are my favorite other channels? So I have quite a few. I wrote down just a couple of them like off the dome. So those, basically, a lot of the channels that I follow are mainly like focused on news, history, like economics and politics news, things like that. So, obviously the channels might be kind of niche to that. I'm not really sure how niche, maybe not, but I do enjoy the content that comes from for just like general kind of watching, like, oh, I just want to like learn something in an entertaining way. Let me scoot in here. I definitely do like the Milo Rossi on the Mini Minute Men channel. He does like archaeology, anthropology content, kind of debunking common myths about archaeology, like talking about ancient aliens theories and things like that, as to why those originated, why they might be problems with them, and so on. And kind of disprove, and just straight up disproving certain things as well, based on the evidence that we do have. So I always find those interesting. Whenever he comes out with a video, I'll usually watch it pretty quickly, because it's always pretty well researched in terms of the archaeology content that's on there. So I would definitely give him a subscribe if you're into just like nerdy educational stuff, history, and so on. But it's kind of ranges from like anthro and like evolutionary biology to like more history oriented. So there's a range kind of like I want to do on here as well. Someone else in that vein that does like more like specifically evolutionary biology, is Lindsay Nicole. Pretty interesting channel, but does kind of the evolutionary biology in like a comedic format. I do appreciate those. And then Stefan Milo also does kind of evolutionary biology, human evolution, topics like that are kind of interesting video essays that he breaks down certain topics for like 30-40 minutes or so. It comes from a very like educated perspective. I'm not exactly sure what some of these folks' backgrounds are, but I trust him, I guess. So for news, I usually will go with I like the Democracy Now! Channel. I know it's kind of pretty widespread and mainstream at this point, but I do think they have very good coverage of all the current events, and their headlines videos where they do basically just summarizing the day's news in like 10 to 15 minutes are very effective, because I think that they do a very good job of focusing not just on like US news, but covering news around the world very effectively, and saying, this is happening, this is happening here, this is happening there. And it's called Democracy Now! And I think that they focus mainly on like democratic processes and like things that go wrong with democratic processes. So when any kind of news story like that comes up, no matter where it is in the world, they're going to be talking about it. And so I find that interesting, because I like to just keep up with, world progress, world news, and kind of the ideas of geopolitics and how everything is tying together here. Another one that I watch for news here, and they do live streams that I believe they are live streaming probably right now, because I think they do a 10 p.m. live stream every night for like 4 or 5 hours, which I don't know how a person can do that. I don't know how someone can live stream for 5 hours. But that is the Enforcer channel, and like I don't really agree with like a lot of their like political stances. Like I know that they're kind of like we're politically neutral, but they are a very like pro like, yes, the US should like expand into other countries, which I don't always agree with, like, or I usually don't agree with. So, but the reason I do follow them and actually watch like quite a few of their live streams, and will sit and actually watch their live streams for a couple of hours, is because they are like super knowledgeable about geopolitics, because they've just been covering like specifically war and geopolitics news for like years and years and years. And like one of the guys on there knows like all of the politicians very well. Like he knows all of the foreign ministers of every country and things like that. And the other one knows like all of the military technology, all of the military force dispositions, like where everyone is on the map, what the different planes are. He knows like what the different arms and vehicles. They look at the flight, the live airline flight radar trackers, and will look at like where military aircraft are in real time. And like I appreciate that level of like diligence and real time like analysis, I guess, because they'll also give their kind of 2 cents as to where they think things are going to lead. And I think frankly, because they look at things much from like a real politic kind of viewpoint, of a very like materialist viewpoint, if I could say that, they usually are pretty accurate in their analysis. And I'm like, okay, I don't agree with these guys with their kind of stance, but like their analysis is very good. Like it's very, very good, especially when it comes to military movements, geopolitics, and stuff. And their coverage of the Iran war has been very good, and largely their focus. I think they started the channel like for kind of essentially for the Ukraine war, or right around when it was leading up to be happening. And then they kind of popped off and like blew up right around that time, because they were covering day-to-day news and getting like on the ground correspondence from some people over in Ukraine, who were sending them messages and saying like, oh, this is what's happening in this certain specific city in Ukraine, here's some footage, and so on. And so they were able to really like grow their channel very early on that way, by covering live news from the Ukraine war. And now they've kind of evolved into covering like just everything in terms of like geopolitics and war news. So the Enforcers, yeah, I'll follow. I do follow them, or I subscribe to them. Definitely one of the channels that I probably put more watch time into than a lot. Another channel that I watch is for coins is Premier Rare Coins, and this guy does like really like yes he does the channel because he's frankly running a coin business, but the reason why I subscribe to his channel is because on his YouTube channel, he will do interviews of high level coin dealers and people in the industry who are very, very, very knowledgeable about what they're talking about. And they also have like really cool show and tells sometimes. He'll be at actual coin shows and talking to these like, semi celebrity people in the industry who are are frankly not easy to just sit down and talk to if you're a nobody. So getting these interviews of these people's word of mouth of saying like, this is what coin collecting was like in the 80s. This is what coin dealing was like in the 70s. This is what I'm doing now. This is what I anticipate the silver market to do in the future. This is how I see, these certain different markets here and there and everywhere. And I think that like the insights that these kind of very high level and very entrenched industry professionals have is like super valuable to the average collector. And it also just shows you some new stuff. Like he will talk to people who have niche kind of collections and who deal in niche things. Even I think he did some with like jewelers as well as coin collectors or coin dealers. And it does expose you as a viewer to like just new stuff if you're a collector and you're like, oh, like I didn't even know this genre of thing. Like he did an interview of someone who did these things called like almost dollars or like not quite dollars or something. I don't remember exactly what they're called, but they're officially minted U.S. metals. People will collect those, and he's like, yeah, like I'm telling people about this because most people don't even know this exists as something they could be interested in, and so I think channels that try to do that kind of thing are very inherently interesting, and ones that seek out interesting people to interview. Of course, I will usually subscribe. So for or for coins also, this is another one where like yeah they're running a business, but their selection of coins is just crazy, and that is Rarity 7 coins. Like they I've looked at their shop because I'm just curious about it, but I have a hard time affording most of the things on there. But like their videos where they go through analyzing both the owner of the company and a fellow who works with them who does like high level analysis and coin grading, they will go through these coins and really tell you exactly why it is graded the way it is graded. And it's very, very informative. And they'll also show off these coins that they get because they do like high end, I mean like $100,000 plus kind of coin deals. So you get to see some of these rarities that you really would not be able to see otherwise. And so I appreciate that channel for the coin collecting as well. For history, I feel like I don't actually follow a lot of YouTubers for history. I of course I did follow the the John and Hank Green Crash Course history videos and a lot of the other kind of animated history things. I do a lot of them have problems and inaccuracies, but I love those like 10-minute history things. I think they're just very fun and entertaining, and I've watched so many of them. So I'm subscribed to a lot of those channels. I didn't even write them down, honestly, but for podcasts, I don't think that this is available in video form, but my absolute favorite history podcasts are those put out by Mike Duncan. And that would be like the History of Rome podcast is the one that a lot of people know him for, because that was one that went on for like 6 years or something, where he was doing literally the entire history of Rome from its inception through its fall, like over 1,000-year history, where you are getting, kind of a week. It was, I believe, a weekly release almost. Maybe he would take a week or two off here and there and going just very in depth about the people, the social movements, the kind of where, who, and why, like everything was happening. I think like why his podcasts are more appealing than a lot of other history podcasts is because he does emphasize that why element of the historical movements a lot more than any other factor. Like he really will emphasize the individual's motivations in the series, or in the series of events, I should say. And so you have that, but then honestly, the series of his that I like more is the Revolutions podcast, and my favorite among those is the Russian Revolution series, which was one of the last ones that was done. And I mean, it's like 100 episodes, but it's truly some of the most excellent like history podcasting I've seen. Like it's just so good. I've started re-listening to it for the third time. Additionally, he does like coverages of the French Revolution and the various other iterations of the French Revolution throughout time that occurred, basically covering kind of the entire history of France from medieval period through the late 1800s. So that sequence is very excellent, as well as the coverage of the Haitian Revolution was also one of my favorites in that series. For birding, I follow the Badger, what is it called? Badgertown? No, Badgerland birding people. I like their content. They do pretty interesting mix of like, I'm traveling out to go see birds in a specific location versus informational videos about specific birds. They do a little bit of both, and I like that. I'll watch both kinds of videos. And actually, their video where they went to see the California condor in the Grand Canyon gave me some insights into where to look, where I was able to actually find one as well when I went a few months after seeing that video. So big fan of that channel, definitely for birding content. For travel, I like the guy Walter's World, I think it's called, and he does like these like 10-minute or so videos of like what not to do when you're traveling to XYZ place. And I think they're incredibly helpful, just simple videos where it just alleviates some of your anxiety as a tourist of like, oh my gosh, there's all of these kind of things that you're just supposed to know going to a new place. Like you have to stamp your bus card, you have to say this as a thank you in a restaurant. You're supposed to tip or not tip, things like that. And he'll cover all of that in a video for like each specific city around the world. And so I like that channel just for the simplicity and effectiveness of how the ideas around traveling are communicated. It's given me some good helpful tips about traveling to places, and he's been like, it's mainly I think in the US, Canada, and Europe. I think he might have done a couple of trips to South America, but not a lot in Asia. So there is that element of it. There's another guy called the Nepali Tangidai, and I think he's a French fella who moved to Nepal, and he does like what it's like to live in Nepal as a Westerner videos to some extent, but then he just lived there for so long that he started to largely kind of integrate as a local to some extent and knows enough people and speaks the language relatively fluently. So I have found following that pretty interesting, and he seems like a very well-intentioned guy who's been there kind of like being supportive of the country as they've dealt with like earthquakes and the civil unrest that I was talking about as well. So I like that channel. It also covered some good food spots in Kathmandu that I actually went and checked out when I went there. So pretty good for travel. For politics, I follow I like Hassan. I follow Hassan Piker. I don't really watch his like live streams because I don't have Discord. I don't even use Discord, but I'll watch the clips of it on YouTube or like find specific stuff, or just I like his content generally, and his commentary is like pretty funny. I like the Rev Left Radio people. They do pretty interesting commentary, as well as the people that they bring on, like the Guerrilla History podcast and the Pan, I believe it's called the Pan African podcast as well. They bring on some very interesting guests, as well as talk about like very in-depth philosophy conversations about leftist theory and left-wing political philosophy. And they have really some of the best explanations, I think, in the podcasting world of some of these kind of complex works of left-wing philosophy from history. So I would definitely check them out. I think their channel Rev Left Radio is the one where they do like all of their stuff, theory, and then interviews, news coverage, and just like reactions. And then they have like a side podcast called Red Menace where they do specifically just the philosophy and theory. But I think like all of the latter is in the former as well. So it's a couple of channels that kind of overlap to some extent, but go check them out. It's super super interesting. I like there was one channel. I'm not sure if this is an excerpt, if it's like an excerpt from some kind of BBC TV show, but it's called Philosophy Bites, and they do like interviews of different contemporary philosophers on different topics from different time periods in philosophy, and kind of hold different ethical debates on the podcast, which I find interesting. Let me see. Anybody else? Yeah. So for New York City travel, I like this guy named Tom D. Tom, I think it's Delgado, for New York City travel, and like he does like walking tour videos where he has really really in-depth history knowledge about the different buildings and architecture and the history of the different real estate developers and so on, and historical events that happened in different locations in New York City. Super interesting if you're ever going to visit the city, to look up his videos on the neighborhoods that you're going to be in, so you can spot those buildings that are, like kind of interesting, and you can tell your friends like, oh, this is where XYZ historical event happened. So that's most of the ones that I had written down. I like the guy Gatsu. He does. I found his channel recently. He does like voiceovers where he does kind of like travel, not really travel, but like location based and political commentary over just rapidly paced meme gifs and clips of just straight brain rot. And I really appreciate the style, and but his commentary also is actually very good, so I would check it out. Gatsu, I think he's a guy from Georgia, but is also travels and does like some on-site videos in different locations as well. I think that's almost to the end of this. I think I only have one more question, and unless there's anyone in the chat willing to throw some more my way. But this last question I have on my list is, what is your favorite anime? Oh man. And also the office decorations here are my girlfriend's. I get asked about this. Hello. I thought I saw somebody popping up in the chat here. But these office decorations are my girlfriend's. I get asked about them in the videos sometimes as to my taste in decorations, but I assure you that it's only partially my taste in decorations, at least. So, my favorite anime is I actually don't know if I can really say, but the anime that I've at least watched the most episodes of is One Piece, which I now have watched the entirety of the sub in Japanese with the subtitles up to the current in the anime, and I've also read some of the manga to kind of catch up to current to avoid getting spoilers online. And then I've also watched the English version up to about episode 700, about amidst Dressrosa, because my girlfriend has been watching the show for the first time. So soon-ish, I will have watched the entirety of One Piece twice. So I would say that One Piece must be my favorite anime, although I will get an honorable mention to Attack on Titan. I would give an honorable mention to Psycho Pass, definitely a very good anime that is certainly underrated. I liked Hunter x Hunter. I would give it like a 7 out of 10. I would say I liked Death Note a lot. I would give it like a 9 out of 10. I'm trying to think. I'm currently watching Jujutsu Kaisen, which I would say it's pretty good. I would give it like a 7.5 out of 10. But Jujutsu Kaisen, I like the premise of it, but I just don't think that they go hard enough with like the execution of the concepts and the plot. Like, I think they really could have gone more like Attack on Titan level plot twists in the show, and as far as I've seen yet, I'm only on like the third season, but Jujutsu Kaisen just doesn't necessarily lean into like the element of the plot twist very well because they have a lot of fake out deaths where you don't believe people are going to die. Um, and the world building just kind of leads you to like the world building isn't really firmly built enough for the plot twist in the world building to mean anything. So I like the show because it's entertaining, but I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure. I watched Solo Leveling. I'm up to current on, and I would give that like a 6.5 out of 10. It's just really entertaining premise, like where the guy can level up based on just training essentially. Like he just has to fight monsters and then he gets stronger, whereas everyone else in his world is born into a certain power level essentially. I mean the premise of Psycho-Pass, which I was talking about earlier, is that there is a all quote unquote all knowing AI that is tasked by or entrusted by the government to completely run society, not just in terms of decision making, in terms of like systematic kind of economic makeup of society, but also in terms of literally scanning people's minds at a moment to moment basis to judge their mental stability at that given moment and deem whether or not they are able or a functional person to be able to be in society. And then like if they're not, they're like detained and kind of put in this sort of program to bring them back. And I think it's a really really fascinating premise. Like it's coming from the perspective of a woman who has just become like a police officer in this system. So she's just learning about it and now having to enforce it. And so it's like just this kind of crazy dynamic that you reach by the end of the second season. The third season, I don't know what the heck is going on, but the first two seasons are excellent. So I would say One Piece and Attack on Titan, pretty basic answers, but those are probably my top two animes as well. So someone else asked me to show my cat on the live stream, but the cat is not in here, so I don't think I'm going to be able to do that, unfortunately. So I'll pretty much gonna just be wrapping it up here. I'd like to thank everyone for 10,000 subscribers. I just checked it. I'm at 10,045, so we're on track to 100K. And don't forget to check out the rest of the channel. If you found anything in this review of broad topics that I'm interested in, please leave a comment below. This live stream again will be available for replay on the channel under the live stream tab. So just comment if there was anything that you found interesting that I will be able to do more deep dives on. But like I said, I've got about 12 videos on the plate. It's not going to be happening soon. So get your request in now. Thanks for 10,000 subscribers. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're not already liked and subscribed. And thank you for watching.